On today's show, the Hawks lose their first game after the All-Star break. We'll get into what went wrong for the Hawks, some officiating questions, and so much more. All that is coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1915 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Thursday evening into Friday. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer with FanDuel, get $150 in terms of dollars in bonus bets. Your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. The place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make it your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. That includes Apple and Spotify on the audio side, as well as YouTube on the video side. Check us out there and anywhere, again, that you find your podcasts. And today's show will be diving in heavily to what became a 114-108 loss for the Hawks at home against the Magic. If you missed that, I did a two-part episode earlier this week with Glenn Willis. Also did a mailbag episode on Wednesday evening. Those are still relevant right now. But for the most part today, we'll focus on this game. And it was a fascinating game. It was a maddening game. It was the first game after the break for Atlanta. There were some high highs. There were some low lows, obviously. And coming in, it was basically seen as a coin flip or so in this one. The Hawks were actually small underdogs at home, according to our friends at FanDuel. And then, of course, they took a 19-point lead in the first half. That did not last very long. In fact, Orlando had a massive run at the end of the first half to erase the advantage entirely by halftime. And then the Hawks trailed for most of the second half of this game. They were competitive. They were actually clawed back and tied the game with like 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And then they just kind of went ice cold at the end of the game. So plenty to get to on this game. I will get into what I thought actually was a pretty terribly officiated game, to be honest with you, in a minute as well, including some audio from Trae Young in his post-game comments. But first, I want to talk about the actual basketball analysis. So we'll start there. And what I would say here is that, broadly speaking, it's not a terrible loss for the Hawks. It was frustrating, and it was mostly an offense-first loss for Atlanta in this game. They had 1.09 points per possession, so about a 109 offensive rating in this game, even on a night when the Hawks were honestly tremendous on the margins, on the glass, taking care of the ball, etc. So I say offense first. It really was a shooting loss for the Hawks, almost exclusively. If you look at the margins, how this game unfolded, all that, they had 48% true shooting in this game, which is very, very bad. That's their fifth worst shooting game of the season. And after this game, the Hawks are now 1-9. So they've lost 9 of the 10 games where they had a 50% true shooting mark or worse. So basically, when you shoot that poorly, it is very hard to win. Not impossible, but very, very hard to win. And the Hawks learned that once again in this game. They were 28 of 65 on 2-point attempts in this game. That's 43%. For some context, league average is like 55%. So that's really, really bad inside the arc in general. And they were, this is the worst part of it, they were 17 of 39 at the rim in this game, per our friends at Cleaning the Glass. That is a 43.6% clip. That's in the second percentile. So that's basically about as bad as you can possibly do at the rim. And basically the rim is like within 3 feet, essentially. It's very, very hard to shoot that badly at the rim. And the Hawks did in this game. So basically, it was a lot of missed layups. That was a lot of a theme post-game. Quinn said it. Trae Young said it. Karis LeVert said it. They all talked about this. Like, it's not always like point-blank open layups, but a lot of shots that the Hawks would usually make, they missed in this game, and a lot of those were around the rim. Makeable shots, not easy, but contested. Orlando is a very, very good defensive team. That's worth keeping in mind, even amid the officiating stuff and the Hawks missing a bunch of shots. They do make life hard on you. That's fair to say, but the Hawks also missed a ton of shots at the rim in this one. Trae Young was 9 of 15 on twos, which is actually quite good for him and for anyone. Okongwu was 4 of 6 on twos, but he was the only other guy on the team that was actually even decent from inside the arc. It was a group issue for sure, but the one that stood out to me was a combined 4 of 21 on twos. That is sub 20% combined for Zaccharie, Risacher, and Dyson Daniels. Two guys who I like quite a bit, two fascinating and really good young players, and they just couldn't make finishes around the rim in this game. They were not alone by any means along the way. Clint Capela was 1 of 6. Karis LeVert missed a bunch around the rim at one point in time. Trae wasn't perfect around the rim necessarily either. Okongwu was just okay, all that stuff. But Risacher and Dyson shooting that poorly around the rim was a big factor. in this game. And also, the Hawks weren't very good from three either. They did open this game 4 of 6 from three in the first quarter, and then they were 7 of 29 for the rest of the game. And they missed 9 of their 28 free throw attempts, which is not going to help you. So basically, it was an equal opportunity disaster shooting-wise for the Hawks. It was very bad, but I will say the three-point numbers and the free throw numbers were not good, but they were not like totally out of line. They were subpar, but not like disastrous. The two-point shooting was disastrous. And after the game, I said this just honestly during the game, then after it as well on social media. That was the number one thing for me. And we'll get to the officiating in a second. I promise you that's not going to be a story that I'm going to go by without acknowledging it. But as far as the game was concerned, I think the number one issue in this game was the Hawks' two-point shooting and particularly finishing around the rim. If they had just made what I would call even a semi-reasonable amount of shots within the 3 feet of the rim, basically, they would have won. It's very simple. Obviously, you can't simulate that all the way together, but even when they also missed shots around the rim, that led to runouts, that led to layups for the Magic in this game, that put pressure on their defense in a bad way for the Hawks. So I think the number one thing by far to me was the Hawks being just unable to finish around the rim. And yeah, some of that could have been officiating related. Some of that was also Orlando's defense, but the Hawks were just not good enough putting the ball in the basket in this game, and that was the biggest takeaway for me. They actually were awesome on the margins. Again, as I said before, they had a 9% turnover rate. That's absolutely fantastic. Orlando is great at turning over other teams defensively, and the Hawks took care of the ball beautifully in this one. They also rebounded the ball at a very high level on the offensive glass. They had 10 more shooting possessions in this game than the Magic. I guess, by the way, Orlando prides itself on winning the margins, and the Hawks won the margins in this game by a lot. If you told me nothing else, but hey, the Hawks are going to win the margins by this number, they're going to have 10 possessions more than the Magic, I would have said the Hawks are big favorites to win. And I still would say that now, even if I watched this game. The Hawks the shooting was that much in favor of Orlando, and that led to where the actual game went. Defensively, the Hawks were just okay. They had a 115 defensive rating in this game. Most of that, I would say, was transition caused by their poor offense. They actually had some really good defensive numbers in the half court in this game. Orlando did not shoot the ball amazingly well, but they were better than the Hawks were, to say the least. Paulo Banchero got hot for a little while in the middle of the game. That definitely ended up being a big part of what transpired. And the Hawks didn't force a lot of turnovers in this game. They did allow 38 free throw attempts, and that's where we'll kind of veer off now for a second. So I acknowledged it already. I don't like to talk about officiating very much on this podcast. I think it could be reductive sometimes and could be a little bit – I understand fans' frustrations, etc. I don't often think it rises to the level of outrage, but I thought it was pretty bad in this game. And I want to say that first. The Hawks were very frustrated. I thought it was very obviously they were frustrated during the game. It was apparent during the game, and then after the game, it became even more clear when they talked to the media post-game. I want to play you some audio from Trae Young post-game in his press conference to give you an idea. It's only about 90 seconds long, so it's a decent-sized clip, but I think it's worth listening to for the context. Trae was not shy about expressing what he thought in this game. So you'll hear the question first from Lauren Williams of the AJC, and here's Trae on the officiating.
We've talked before about maybe being the team that sets the tone of the game, and it seemed like Orlando, especially toward the latter half, kind of set the tone. How do you guys try to find that balance to not get frustrated when calls maybe don't go your way?
I don't know if it's setting the tone. I mean, I think we set the tone too. I think it was just officiated one-sided. I mean, some refs take shit personal. I mean, some refs have held things personal. I mean, even against me, and that's fine. I mean, for me, I like standing up for my teammates. I feel like they shot 10 more free throws than us, and I mean, I feel like if you ask anybody around the league, you would know that they're probably a more physical team than we are. And the way we drove, I mean, even some of the guys were laughing when they weren't calling fouls for me, and we'd go on the other end. So it's frustrating. I know a few of those refs. I mean, I've been known for throwing people out throughout the year, things like that. So, I mean, I even asked Caitlin if she liked throwing people out, and she said that's what makes her a good ref. So, it's shit like that. It's personal for some of these refs, and some stuff that fans don't even get to hear, but you get to see it in their calls and their actions and things like that. So, you just wish that you can get some refs that just don't take things personal and understand that people grow. I'm not 19 anymore. I can communicate with these people. And I have with a lot of the refs, and I feel like the refs have been responsive for the most part, but then you get a handful that, like we get tonight, that are just take shit personal, and you can see it by the way they by the way they make their calls.
So obviously you hear there that Trae was quite frustrated. He thought it was personal for him. Obviously, we just can't know that on the outside, but Trae said what he said. That's worth pointing out. I wanted you guys to hear that. I thought it was obvious that the Hawks were frustrated, and with good reason. I thought, and I said this during the game as well, that they just lost control of the game, the officials in this game. There was a lot of focus on one particular official, which I understand. I thought there was one that was maybe worse than the others, but it was just a group. Like, they just didn't have it. There was no flow to the game whatsoever. And that played into Orlando's hands. I'm always loath to be like, it was one-sided. Trae said it was one-sided. I think it ended up being one-sided because of the way the game flow favored the Magic once it became clear that they were going to call the game that way. That favored Orlando, and that was the case here. But look, I don't like to do officiating talk. And again, I said it before, I'll say it again now. If the Hawks just made layups, they probably would have won this game. But I thought it was maddening to watch, and it was a storyline after the game. Quinn didn't go as far as traded, but Quinn did say a couple times, actually, so did Karis LeVert. They both mentioned that there was like 5-0 as far as fouls in the fourth quarter at one point in time. They were not shy. I think the Hawks were very clearly frustrated by it. Technical fouls. There was one by Trae, one by Niang. It was a storyline throughout this game. I don't want to make too much light of it now, but that was definitely part of the mix here, and that frustrating officiating and their frustrations as a Hawks team toward the officiating maybe were off kilter in this game. But number one on the list would still be the lack of finishing for the Hawks, but certainly throw it on there. And having a 19-point lead in the first half go away by halftime, that little swoon, we'll talk about more in a second, was definitely frustrating, and we'll leave it there for now. But look, big picture, like coming into the night, if you said, all right, the Hawks are lose this game by 6 points, that isn't a disastrous result as a home underdog in this game. But the way the game flowed, it was certainly more vexing than it would have been if you didn't know the Hawks took a lead in the first quarter and in the first half, generally speaking. And of course, a head-to-head loss against Orlando and a team that they're trying to battle with for the division, for the playoff race, etc. That one will sting for a while. The Hawks will have 2 days to kind of recover and then play again on Sunday, but certainly not the way that they wanted to begin the quote-unquote second half of the season at all. All right, we'll get into more of what transpired in this game, plus by player evaluations at the end of the contest. First, though, we're from our partners on the show. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the game tips off, the NBA action is getting started, and there's no better place to get on the action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And with FanDuel, you actually place live bets throughout the game. So if you have to miss the opening tip-off, you want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay on the action with FanDuel. The live betting feature actually keeps moments of the game very exciting for you across the board. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you actually combine the bets together into a same-game parlay during the game as well. Plus, they have offerings on over-unders, point spreads, money lines, player props, game props, and much more. The app is safe and secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well. That includes the NBA and college basketball, the NFL when it's in season and out of season with futures, etc. MLB, WNBA, hockey, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing. They have boxing, they have MMA. It's all there for you and more at FanDuel. Plus, the app is really easy to use, and when you win, you actually get paid instantly with the folks at FanDuel. And right now, if you're a new customer, you also get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel Sportsbook. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to join up right now today. That is FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we'll dive in now to how this game unfolded. If you're a new listener to the show, what we do here is talk about kind of the game flow with my observations, a little bit of analysis, just stuff that I saw throughout this contest. And kind of funny now, the Hawks actually allowed 2 dunks in the first 30 seconds of the game, which is not ideal. And then they had a nice settle-in process. They had a 17-4 run early in the game. A couple of nice highlights there. It was a great pass by Trae to Mohamed Gay, who started this game for Atlanta. A couple of threes by Risacher and Trae. I thought Risacher was great early on. Missed a couple of shots around the rim, but had 5 rebounds. Great energy from Zach throughout this game. They actually had a Kongwu defending Boncaro for part of this game with Gay on Carter Jr. That kind of worked at times, but then Paolo got comfortable, and that did not keep working, I would say, throughout the game. Rotationally, it was the home debut for Georges Niang, Karis LeVert, and Terrence Mann, all of whom had decent games to varying degrees. They had their press conference, of course, last week, but did not play in their first game until they actually were basically in Atlanta tonight. The first 3 games were on the road. They actually played in, so that was a little bit notable. And also, Clint Capela returned in this game after about 3 weeks, 3+ weeks without playing. He had not played for the Hawks since the January 27th mark because of trade stuff and back spasms and all that fun stuff. But, coming back, there's some drama there. He was backup center in this game. They smartly kind of tied his minutes to George Niang or Don Barlow because they don't think that. And by the way, I agree with this, that Capela and Mo Gay should be playing together offensively, kind of limiting there. But they did play 9 guys in the first half. It became 10 after halftime because Don Barlow played in the second half after not playing in the first half at all. But generally speaking, defensively, they were awesome in the first quarter. They actually held the Magic to 9 points on their first 18 possessions of the game. Orlando didn't get to their 10th point until the 3-minute mark, basically, of the first quarter. And the Hawks were not shooting well around the rim, even in the first quarter when they were up big. I noted this during the game. They actually, at one point, I think they were like shooting 5 of 15 from 2-point range at the rim, and they were up by 15 points. It was like they were doing everything else really well except for that. But interesting, like bad challenges, etc. But the Hawks were up by 19 points early in the second quarter. Keep that in mind. Then they had their first and really only huge hiccup of the game. Trae went to the bench, up by 17 points. And then the Hawks had 6 consecutive empty possessions on offense without Trae. He went to the bench. They had the ball 6 times. They didn't score any of those points. They got 3 shots in a row blocked and a couple turnovers as well. That led to some transition points for the Magic. And the lead was down to 10 before Trae even came back in. They didn't score a single point with Trae on the bench in the first half. Then the margin kept tightening and tightening and tightening. Overall, it was a 38 to 18 run in about 10 minutes for the Magic to go from the Hawks being up by 19 to being down by 1 at halftime. A lot went wrong in that stretch, obviously. To be losing by 20 points in 10 minutes, that's bad. They made 15 of 20 shots at Orlando, including Banchero going crazy at 18 points in 30. Banchero has as many points, 18, as the Hawks did in that 10-minute stretch. Also, the officiating, as I said before, took all the flow away, and it kind of bogged the Hawks down into the tempo or lack thereof that Orlando wants to play at. They also had some foul trouble. Okongwu and Niang had 3 fouls each for halftime, and the Hawks also shot it very poorly. They got 4 shots blocked. They were 1 of 7 from 3, et cetera, et cetera. And in the first half, they actually were 8 of 20 at the rim, which is even worse than they were for the full game. So a lot went wrong there, but a lot went wrong in a bad way for the Hawks, and that kind of led to the lead evaporating. Orlando actually came out of halftime staying hot. They made 5 of the first 6 shots. At one point, they made 20 out of 26 shot attempts, and the Hawks were not shooting so well. In fact, there was about a 14-minute period from the end of the first half to the beginning of the third quarter where the Hawks were outscored 51-23 in 14 minutes. Honestly, having that happen to you and actually being in the game, having it be tied late is kind of crazy. I mean, the Hawks were really good the rest of the game, but that 14-minute stretch is how you lose the game, basically. I thought mostly the defense, especially in the half court, was pretty okay in that stretch, but a lot of it was good shot making by the Magic and also just the poor shot creation and short shot making for the Hawks, leading to Orlando running out a lot. Like I said before, there was some officiating frustrations that boiled over, a couple of technical fouls. Don Barlow played, I think, because Niang was kind of frustrated at that point in time. Quinn did play a lineup that I did not understand at all. He played a Dyson Daniels, Karis LeVert, Terrence Mann, Don Barlow, Clint Capela lineup. And I think it might have been frustration because they were not rebounding the ball very well defensively before that. And then Niang was kind of maybe off kilter with the technical foul. But if you're going to do that, you got to at least have Trae out there for offense because I just don't know how that line's supposed to score. It wasn't so long, but the visuals matched the lineup. Like those guys, like nobody's like a disaster offensively, but having like no creation at all and no spacing is kind of tough. It didn't work, obviously. They did play better at times in the third quarter, but they were still down by 9 points because of a lot of the like issues. They had some second chance buckets that they allowed defensively, a couple of bad communication issues defensively. They actually allowed a wide open 3 late in the third quarter, and then they just couldn't make shots. At that point, I believe it was, they were 13 of 30 at the rim in the first 3 quarters. And it actually didn't get much better than that. It was just that's where we were. They had some juice in the fourth quarter. I thought Capela had his best stretch of the game early in the fourth. He actually was kind of a mess on offense throughout the game, but he had a really, really awesome one-on-one rep against Franz Wagner defensively. We kind of played him out on the floor very impressively. Then Trae hit a 3, and then Capela had a nice block to lead to a run-out dunk. They were back in the game at that point in time. But that's when officiating even got worse, honestly. They lost control completely. Again, I don't talk about this stuff on the podcast too much, but it was kind of evident in this game. How about Trae? Trae got called for a foul on Paulo Banchero that was definitely not a foul in a way that I would, at least that's my opinion. Quinn challenged it. I also thought it was not going to be a winning challenge. I didn't love the challenge. I understood why he did it. He was frustrated, clearly, as the whole team was. But Paolo just kind of falls down. It's a very soft call. And that hurt them because they lost the challenge. And then Risacher got called for a shooting foul like a minute and a half later that might have been overturned, and they couldn't challenge it. So that was kind of a bad break and also some frustration overall, I would say. They kept in the fourth quarter getting it to like a 5-point deficit and then having a shot in the air to make it 2 or 3 and not making it. But then they finally got one to go. Trae got a shot to go to get within 2. And then after some empty trips, Trae beat Paolo for a layup to tie the game with like 3.5 minutes to go. So after all that, you're back to level. Then Cole Anthony and Karis LeVert traded buckets. So the Hawks were the Hawks were tied with 3 minutes to go. That's where they were. But then the offense went back into the offense where they had been all night long, basically. The Magic, to their credit, made back-to-back threes. Orlando didn't shoot it incredibly well in this game, but they did time their shots very well in the fourth quarter. But the Hawks had 4 consecutive missed shots, all inside the arc and all very makeable. A couple of floaters, a couple of layups. Nothing went down. I think Trae missed 2 of those. LeVert missed 1 that they kind of probably shouldn't even take it, honestly, because we were already down by 6 points at that point. But it was, honestly, I thought it was kind of fitting with the way the game had gone. The Hawks couldn't make shots inside the arc. When they finally had to make some at the end, they didn't make them. Orlando made their 2 jumpers, and that was basically where the game split. So a tie game, and something was like, it was 9 within like a minute. It was like, all right, bang, bang, bang. Hawks go empty 4 times in a row. There's your game. So, to the Hawks' credit, they came all the way back to tie the game. They made some kind of haymaking plays, I would thought, impressively in that fourth quarter. Trae had 38 in this game, by the way, which we'll come back to later on, but not enough offense across the board. And then tip of the cap to Banchero in particular, and also Cole Anthony made 2 big shots in the fourth quarter as well. All right, I'll leave it there for now. I will get into my player evaluations, there's plenty to get to on those, to be sure, in this game, for some highs and also some pretty obvious lows, I thought, across the board. First, though, from our partners on the show. Today's show is sponsored by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 points or more in a game, you can score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. Any player in the NBA scores 50 points or more in a game during the 2024-2025 season, regular season, I should say, Dash Pass members get 50% off and order up to $10 off the next day from noon until midnight. After an epic performance with 50 points or more, celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, or burgers from your favorite spots delivered straight to your door. Or perhaps if you're a night owl like I am, you actually need a midnight snack, you can get Dash Pass to grab something delicious while saving big as well. If you want lunch on the go, also use Dash Pass to get your favorite meals delivered with $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees as well. And plus, now you save even more with this exclusive NBA offer from DoorDash. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save right now. When any player scores 50 points or more in a game, Dash Pass members 50% off and order the next day up to $10 off with Dash Pass at DoorDash. Just use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight, 50-point game after uneligible orders on participating merchants. You must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash right now to learn more. All right, and to the player-by-player evaluations in this game. Like I said before, some high highs, some low lows across the board. They played 10 guys. Don Barlow only played the second half, played 7 minutes. I said this at the time. He played really well, actually. 7 minutes. It's actually really hard to come in ice cold in the fourth quarter of a game, basically, second half of a game, and really play well in a competitive, physical game. And Dom, at 21 years old, did that. 5 points, 2 rebounds, made both of his shots, was +3 in the game. Quinn shouted him out after the game. I thought he gave him good minutes for sure. Nothing to go crazy about, but I was encouraged by that. Also, if you missed that, I talked about Dom quite a bit on the show last night, how I think the Hawks should probably try to target him on a multi-year deal if they can. But I liked what I saw from Dom in a pinch in the second half of this game. Clint Capela returns from his long absence, 18 minutes, 3 points, 4 rebounds, had an assist, had a block, was 1 of 6 from the floor. Obviously, offensively, Clint is clunky at this stage of his career in general, but especially in this game. I thought he was definitely a negative on offense. No question about that. I think defensively, he actually looked pretty good and physically looked pretty spry for someone who has not played a lot of basketball recently, maybe has his legs back a little bit. It's very clear that he's now the firm backup center. That's what it should be at this point in time. Kong's been playing better, but I thought Clint was okay beyond the finishing. The finishing is going to be a problem maybe forever now, but we'll see. I thought he was okay. Offensively, not so good. Defensively, was pretty good in this game. A couple of nice flash plays in the second half in particular. George Niang, 26 minutes, 8 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists for Niang. Had 4 fouls, was 0 of 2 on 2s, 2 of 4 from 3 in the game. Thought he played fine. Defensively, had a couple of rough moments, one-on-one against Boncaro in particular and against Winokur Jr. But I think as a team defender, he was fine in this game. Just didn't have a ton of offensive juice, didn't make 2 threes, and he was the only guy that actually shot well other than Zaccharie Risacher percentage-wise from 3. But I thought Niang was fine. -5 of the game was just okay. Karis LeVert, 13 points. That was second most on the team for the Hawks. 4 rebounds, had 2 steals as well. -8 in the game. He was 6 of 10 on 2s, 0 of 3 from 3. Did miss 3 free throws, which is not great necessarily. I thought he played pretty well, got more aggressive as the game went along. The bench units were mixed. It wasn't like there was one great unit for the Hawks in this game. No one was like dominating. But I thought Karis gave them some good minutes, generally speaking. Terrence Mann, 22 minutes off the bench, 7 points, 3 assists. He was -6 and was 2 of 2 on 2s, 1 of 3 from 3. I thought he looked more comfortable in this game offensively. He had a really rough game against the Knicks before the break. I think his offense might kind of wax and wane a little bit, but I thought Mann looked okay in this game. Did the little things, had 3 nice passes along the way, and was just fine off the bench. To the starters, Mo Gay, 15 minutes as a starter. That was similar to the Knicks game as well. I think that it's very clear that they don't love Mo as a big minute player. I know he is starting, but the latest example of this Hawks team does not really care about who starts to some degree. They, for most of the season, had Hunter coming off the bench, despite the fact that Hunter was definitely one of their best 5 players. Now Mo is kind of getting the token start, basically, in some respects. Now, I said before, you don't want to play Mo and Capela together. So if you know Capela's going to be backup center now, which it seems to be the case, you don't want to have Mo do that. So starting him makes some sense to me, but it's obviously a start and limited role for me. And look, offensively, Mo Gay is not helping you right now. That's not a huge negative. Like, he's a very young player, talented defender for sure. Offensively, he's clunky and not helping you. But defensively, there was some nice flash. He had 1 big block early on. Wasn't disastrous. I thought he was really bad against the Knicks. He was not really bad tonight. Just kind of was out there. Didn't do a whole lot, I didn't think. Zaccharie Risacher had a weird game. 11 points, 12 rebounds for Risacher in this one, actually. He is not usually a high rebound player whatsoever. In fact, I'm checking this right now. That might be, yes, a career high for Risacher. 12 rebounds in this game. He had a steal, he had a block, he had an assist. He actually was a game best +7, and he was 3 of 5 from 3. So a lot of good things for Risacher. He was also 1 of 10 on 2s. 1 of 10. Now, I said before, him and Daniels just couldn't finish in this game. Risacher has to get stronger. Everyone knows that. He knows that. The team knows that. I know that. Fans know that. It is what it is. But I liked that he was still trying to drive. And that might seem counterintuitive. I'm thinking about a future-facing lens for Risacher. He's still a 19-year-old rookie. But in this game, it was hurting them. But I like that he didn't get deterred. I thought he was under control mostly, just wasn't very physical on those drives. But I thought other than that, which you can't eliminate, I will certainly grant that, he played well overall. He just didn't have the finishing. I thought he probably should have played more, honestly, and the numbers support that for the most part. But I thought he had a good game, just one pretty big black eye with the finishing issues in this one. Okongwu, 30 minutes, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. He was just okay. I didn't think he was very good most of the way, honestly. It wasn't like he was bad, just kind of a low-key, not a huge flash game. He did have 3 nice passes, I thought, that I flagged one by one for his assists in this game. Defensively, he was fine. Rebounding-wise, he was okay. Just not a flash game for Okongwu, but I thought he was totally fine in his minutes. It wasn't like he got them killed at all, and it was not part of the finishing issues in this game. 4 of 6 for him. Dyson Daniels had a rough one offensively. His worst one in a while offensively, I would say. It's kind of fitting because I had a segment yesterday on the show about Dyson that was very positive, and I stand by all of what I said. But offensively tonight was a very rough game for him. He was 3 of 12 on 2s, and it felt that way. There were some bad misses around the rim, shots that you want him taking for sure. He didn't finish well in this game. 0-3 from 3 as well. That's okay. No huge deal there. He did have 11 rebounds, 4 assists and 3 steals. Like, defensively, he was still really good. It's just that offensively, he really had a rough time. And you could have probably withstood one of Zach or Dyson's misses around the rim, but both of those together was a tough combination to overcome. And then Trae Young, 38 points on 33 shooting possessions. So he was certainly above water efficiency-wise. He was 9 of 15 on twos, 4 of 13 from 3, 8 of 10 at the line, 6 assists. 5 turnovers is probably more than you want, but as a team, I think they had 10 in the game. Like, they were very, very under control there. You know, Trae wasn't perfect. He even said post-game, I missed some shots that I wanted to make normally, like some floaters. But even then, like, I thought he was good. He didn't dominate. He definitely was frustrated about the officiating, as you heard earlier on the podcast. But you know, not a night where he was like, I thought he was like his absolute A+ self, but he was efficient and had 38 points, and nobody else was scoring. So he kind of had to carry a big load there. It worked out all right for him, and there you go. So again, overall, the Hawks are playing reasonable basketball. They just didn't have. There was one glaring issue tonight. Oh, I bet to give this stat. I will say it now, so I don't want to forget it. The Hawks shared this during the game about Dyson Daniels as a follow-up to yesterday's podcast. Dyson currently has more steals, total steals this season, than any player in the NBA has had over a full season in the last 5 years. More steals for the season total, not per game, total, already this season than any player's had in the last 5 years. And the Hawks still have 26 games left. So that's a pretty preposterous number. Anyway, I'll leave with that. From here, the Hawks did just return to action. I understand that, but they actually have 2 days off now with no travel. I would imagine they'll be practicing at least once on Saturday or Sunday. On Friday or Saturday, I should say, before they play a game on Sunday. They play the Pistons on Sunday. That'll be an interesting test. I said this a lot on the show yesterday, but the Hawks have a lot of interesting, like, kind of coin flippy games recently. They had this game on Sunday against Detroit, and they play Miami twice after that, and that's a sort of head-to-head that's very pivotal. The Pistons, I believe, the Pistons are coming in with a full rest as well. I was looking at just kind of make sure there wasn't a huge rest advantage there either way. The Pistons play on Friday, so there's a one-day edge for the Hawks rest-wise in that matchup. But stay tuned for that. I will probably not have a show over the weekend because there's not that much to talk about at the moment. I mean, there is, but nothing glaring news-wise, and we're going into a weekend, and then we'll have a back-to-back on Sunday and Monday. So stay tuned for that. I will, of course, have breakdowns of those games, as you might imagine, and then we'll follow up from there with more. So, moral of the story, a frustrating night for the Hawks, to be sure. There was some of that boiling over throughout this game, but not one they can't get by, and they have another opportunity to kind of get right a little bit over the weekend on Sunday, Monday, especially against the Pistons and the Heat. So we'll stay tuned for all of that. Please subscribe to this podcast anywhere you find the podcasts. That includes Spotify, it includes Apple, Amazon, Overcast, etc. We're also on YouTube. Please like this video as you are watching it and tell your friends about the podcast as well. Follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland. I also share extra audio and write things at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, everybody, enjoy your weekend. We'll be back again in a couple of days after the game on Sunday, and we'll see you all next time.